Welcome to Apply Formatting. In this video, we will be applying finishing touches on the web page we created that connects to enterprise services. We will convert our auto-generated columns to bound columns and apply CSS formatting to the grid. From the current state of the web page, you can see that we need some formatting for the grid view we created earlier. Essentially, we want to alter the width of the columns so the contents fit a little better. And we'll also want to right justify these data values and then apply some color to the grid so that it looks more appealing. Let's go back to our design page and we will begin by applying a style to the grid view control. To do this, we simply click on the grid, and once we get the right arrow button to show, we can select Auto Format from the menu list. Now there's many styles here we can choose from, and as you can see there are some colors and different fonts and so forth. We're going to choose Professional for this demo, and then we'll choose OK. So now let's take a look at the other options that are available to us. We're going to add the ability to sort the columns, so we're going to click on Enable Sorting, and this will create links in the header rows that the user can click on to sort by that column. So now we're ready to create our bound columns, which gives us the opportunity then to format the cells individually and apply CSS styles to them. This enables the styles to be altered without requiring code changes. So let's now go to the source view, and we find it a little bit easier to add columns here rather than in the GUI, especially when we're creating a number of them using all the same format. So within the grid view tags, we're going to create a new node called columns, and we will define the columns that we're going to be manually binding to instead of auto-generating, and that's what goes here. So now within this column nodes, we're going to add a bound field nodes, and these bound fields will instruct ASP that the data we're going to use to populate the rows with comes from the data source, and in our case it's DS planning. So let's start off by adding an ASP :bound field node, and that will correspond with the employee name. Let's define the column header that will be shown by adding a header text attribute, and we'll set it to a value of employee name. Okay, now we can specify the name of the data value that we want to bind using the data field attribute, and we're going to set this to employee. This value is the name of the column that we defined when we created the LINQ query. And then lastly, for this bound field, we're going to set the style of the column to a CSS style that we're going to be creating a little bit later. We use the attribute item style -CSS class to define the style that we want to use within our site.css file. Let's call it call employee, and then we close the bound field node. Now we're going to create a style for this column a little bit differently than the rest, so the textual value will be left justified here, and then for the data values we're going to right justify them. So we're going to create a different style on the next set of columns. So let's start the next bound field for the September, and then we're going to set the header text equal to September, or SEP. So for this column, the data field attribute will be SEP, and then the item style -CSS class will be set to call data. So this is going to separate this one from the employee column format. So with the September defined, we can copy this row, and we're going to paste it 11 more times so that we get one bound field for each column. And now we need to update the header text for each of these columns that correspond to the months starting in September. And then we go through all of these, changing each one. And then finally all the way through to August. So now we need to kind of repeat this for the data field attribute. So we're going to start at October and work our way down to August. It would be very nice now to have an automatic labeler macro here or something. Maybe we'll do that in the next video. And then finally August. Okay, with the manually specified columns all set up, we need to turn off the auto-generate columns, and we'll go to the grid view definition here. And we're going to enter a new attribute. It's called auto-generate columns, and then we're going to set this value to false. Alright. Now we're ready to create the CSS styles, so let's go to the styles folder and double click on site.css. And at the bottom we're going to add two new styles, and we'll start with the employee column. So we're going to type in .call employee followed by an open brace. Now what we want to do is to left justify this field, which is the default for the grid. So we can leave this alone, but we need to make the text fit a little better. So we're going to enter a width of, let's say, 250 pixels. Now for the data values, we want them right justified. So we're going to create a different style. We're going to call this one .call data, followed by an open brace, and then we're going to set the width of the data values to 60 pixels. It should be enough there. Now for these ones we want to right align them, so we're going to set the text dash align style to right, and then we'll end our style. Okay, so now the styles have been set for the two different types of columns, and if we had other formatting needs such as, stack dimensions, we could do it similar to how we've done it here. We just define some more styles. Let's go ahead and run this, and we can see what our web page looks like now. And Visual Studio will compile and run the web page in a new browser session, and as you can see, we have our grid all nicely formatted. So as the user starts to change the drop downs, let's say from human resources here to financials, and then hits the refresh button, all of our data in the grid is updated accordingly in a nicely laid out grid. This concludes the basic form creation with ASP.NET. For more information on enterprise services, go to www.carpedatuminc.com/products, or you can send us an email at info@carpedatuminc.com.